Hi, welcome to Money Matters TV. I'm Patty Tawadros from Xercel. I'll be your host, and I'm joined today by my co-host Paul Mitchell. And we have an interesting guest today who does Asia marketing and management company, James Chan. And I think it's really going to be interesting because we're going to talk about Donald Trump and the election, which is everyone's favorite topic right now. And Paul, great to see you.
Easy, Patty.
Yeah.
Pleasure. So, what's going on in your business world these days?
Things are really good. And then when people say, oh, what did Obama do to the economy? And I think he did good things because my business is better than it's been in 10 years.
Wow. Well, I know some of the businesses I deal with talk about some of their issues are regulations, okay, in terms of establishing a new business or growing a new business or going to a new location, things like that. Another one is cybersecurity. And though I'm not an expert in cybersecurity, and I know you're not an expert in cybersecurity, it sure impacts us a lot and impacts our clients a lot.
I can tell you I went to a lecture from a group I was involved in, and the guy runs cybersecurity and he trains his clients. It's a big part. You don't just say, oh, I put in a firewall for you. They go in and train all the clients because now there's those emails that come out, and if you click a link, it takes you somewhere, and someone takes called ransomware. They suddenly own your computer and you have to pay them to release your computer back to you.
Sure.
And then you kind of think the mentality is that if you paid them once, they're going to work to hack your computer again because you're going to pay them again.
Yeah.
You're a cash cow now.
Brutal. Another story I heard was some aide to some politician received an email that looked suspicious. So the person said, well, we've got on our team, we've got cybersecurity experts. So he forwarded the email to that person and said, does this look okay? And the person responded, looks okay. And the next thing, tens of thousands of so-called confidential emails were out on the internet.
Oh my God, it's terrifying. Another horror story I heard was, I won't say what industry they were in because I don't want anyone to be like, oh, I know who that was. But their HR person got an email, and it was from the IRS, and it said, send me your personnel files for 2010, 2011, so that we can complete such and such, whatever it was. And she thought, oh, all right, I'm going to be really efficient and helpful. And she compiled all the personnel records with social security numbers and data and zipped it up and sent it, and didn't understand that that was a cyber attack.
Wow.
So, yeah, it can't just be at the top. It needs to go all the way down through your organization.
Well, sounds like education.
Yes.
More education is needed.
Yeah.
I had a situation a couple of years ago where a customer, I'm a commercial banker, and I had a customer ask me a question about the security at the bank. What if their account was hacked some way, okay, and money was taken out of their account? A valid question. So I went to the security folks at the bank, and I asked them, and they sort of hemmed and hawed a little bit and said, well, the main thing is they're supposed to read the fine print.
And no one reads that.
When they open their account. And when they get updates on account information, those little pamphlets that you get, it prints about that high. And it essentially tells you that you're ultimately responsible.
If somebody hacks into your account and steals your money, what if you notice it right away?
Well, it could be, it could be limited to maybe a certain dollar amount. I mean, credit cards, it's the federal law regarding credit cards can be limited to $50 if you notify the bank within a certain amount of time. And I've had that experience personally, and I didn't even have $50 deducted from my account. But certainly there have been episodes where hackers have gotten into store account information. It wasn't the bank,
right?
But the money ultimately came from the customer at the bank. So it wasn't the bank's fault; it was the store's fault. So
it's terrifying. What about all the email hacks during the election campaign?
Sure. Well, that's part of it. So a lot of it's still going back to education. More of us need to be educated more and more about these issues, and that the experts, like any profession, they're experts, and then they're experts. Some are better than others.
And it's also something kind of like our guest last week where we talked about LinkedIn. You don't really want to spend the money to hire an expert and have them on staff to train. So if they cost $2,000 a month to train your team and to monitor your system, you think, we've never been hacked. I'm not spending that money, but
well, this kind of is a nice segue going into regulations then. Okay, so let's say that happens, and you get in front of a court or whatever, and somebody says, so what did you do as a company to protect the company and its employees from this cyber attack? And the company goes, well, we told them to be careful. Oh, you didn't give them any kind of education? You didn't even have a webinar? You didn't send them to a program? You said, well, that cost a lot of money. So basically you did nothing, and now you don't want to be responsible for what happened.
But
the regulations are going to say, you have to do something. At least put in a policy in place that you thought about the issue and did something. Write it down. So you did what you could. Maybe it's not perfect, but it's something. If you simply ignore it, policies, procedures, regulations, compliance.
Then the bank ends up being on the hook if they didn't train their staff.
Absolutely. Let me tell you, as a bank employee, there are lots of webinars and other seminars that I have to attend. I'm forced to.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I tell you that when I left that seminar, I was terrified, and I went back and I talked to my staff about not clicking on links in email, make sure when the sender looks valid, if you're questioning it. And they've said that they've all received emails that they realized weren't accurate and ignored. And I think, thank God, that I talked to them about it. And yeah.
Sure. So one piece of advice as a generalist, I would say, if you get such an email from the IRS, something that's a little out of the norm, contact the IRS on your own.
They say they never email or what else don't they do? They don't call you?
Track it down.
Yeah.
Talk to somebody. Talk to somebody that should know.
Yeah.
You can't just assume and do nothing. So, and again, we were talking about other resources available out there for small businesses and medium-sized businesses. There are a lot of free resources out there. Part of the federal government, part of the county, part of the city. So you should try to use those resources.
Yeah.
And rely on other professionals that spend more time on such issues than you do. It might be your attorney, it might be your accountant, somebody like that.
That's good advice. Let me ask you the guest question, because
Sure.
I think it'll lead to some more interesting conversation. So this is from Donald Young in Exton, and he asks, what are some ways to avoid bank charges at the bank today?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. And there are all kinds of charges these days. And it ebbs and flows. Some years, some decades, bank fees go up, and others they go down to be competitive, up and down, etc. There are two things I would suggest. Number one, there are all kinds of different banks out there. Some banks promote themselves as having minimal or no fees. Maybe use those banks. I mean, convenience is something else. I mean, it's maybe a trade-off. Read the fine print. You've got to find out, what those charges are in the first place, as opposed to being surprised. So you've got to do your research. And again, I would go on the internet and see what kind of other reviews there might be. Just simply Google in your area what banks have minimal charges, and then do some additional research. Go into the bank and talk to them about that.
Can you negotiate with a bank to get better rates or better fees if you're doing a lot of business? Some
rates. It's common practice for rates if you're talking about larger amounts of investments. If you're talking about $500, probably not negotiable. If you're talking $100,000 plus, many banks will negotiate to a certain extent to give you a higher rate. In terms of fees, generally you're not going to be able to negotiate away fees ahead of time. But after the fact, you may go to the bank and say, I didn't know this was going to happen, or this is the first time I've been a customer for 10 years, etc. You may be successful in doing that, whether it's a first overdraft charge in 10 years, or uncollected funds, or for a stop check fee, things of that nature. So banks, they want to maintain a good rapport with their customers, and certain banks over the years, you've read about in the newspapers, have had exorbitant fees and gotten in trouble with their customers, or even the regulators, the federal regulators. So that's a concern to banks.
Good. All right. So I'm sure you might have your own question, and if you'd like to have it answered on air, here's how to send it in.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says, Send us your questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, M-O-N-E-Y, matters, M-A-T-T-E-R-S, TV.com.
Welcome back. We're going to be joined by our guest, James Chan from Asia Marketing and Management Company to talk about China and Donald Trump. Welcome.
Thank you, Patty.
It's really
Thank
nice
you.
to meet
Thank you,
you.
Paul.
Yeah,
Yeah, nice to
great.
meet you too.
Great to
Yeah.
see you again. So agent marketing, what exactly does that mean? What do you
Well,
do?
We do something kind of unusual. We consult with companies that want to export, market American-made, 100% American-made. Used to be products, because I started 3 decades ago. But now in recent years, services too, including financial services to China and Asia. So I'm one of those rare people who are not shipping jobs to China, so to speak. Not that people plan to, but so that's basically Asia Marketing and Management. We market products to Asia and help my clients manage their agents.
So you know people in China, you know how to speak the language, and you've been doing this for a long time, so that makes you an expert.
I mean, nobody knows everything, but I started in 1983, so I've been doing it for 33 years. I think that if you do the same thing year in, year out long enough, I suppose you can be an expert.
You're the guy. I'm really surprised, embarrassed maybe, that I didn't know that American-made goods were exported to China. I always just thought it was the other way around and we were consuming everything from China.
You are to a large extent correct in your perception, because I remember when I first started in 1983 on my own, consulting, even my clients would say, "Oh, James, is there such a thing? I thought we don't sell things to China, we only make things there." So that's the general perception. But as a matter of fact, it's not just China, but many Asian countries have been buying American-made products, things that they are more sophisticated. They are like highly engineered, or they're extremely technical, or they are branded. Just a lot of things that surprisingly they buy.
I heard that even the processing of meat or fish, it's being shipped to China, processed there, and then sold back to the U.S.
Oh, but that's really selling raw materials there and get them processed with maybe some additives, some formulas that are proprietary to the American importer. In fact, Patty, one of the chunk of so-called exporting to China, exported material, I call them the tourists. Let me define what I mean by a tourist. So you have, let's say, a component, a part, a machine component, or a metal part or plastic part that is highly specialized and made with some secret sauces and pixel dusting. And then companies will export that part to a Chinese contract manufacturer and have the contract manufacturer incorporate that little component in a product, which now will be, 3 months later, will be exported to America. So these parts are tourists. They go to China, they stay there for a few months, and then they come back. So there's that portion of export.
Right.
Not big, but there's a percentage. I would say 20%, 30%.
James, I understand that you were recently in China, and of course, the big news in this country the last several months is Donald Trump, president-elect, and different conversations about China and that China and this China.
Right.
So what perceptions that you have over there from the Chinese?
Well, first of all, we left. I spent 14 days mostly in mainland China and a few days in Hong Kong, and so we actually spent election day somewhere in a coastal city, I think in Hangzhou. And we were actually giving a seminar. We were describing the product of our client, and our agent was checking on his smartphone because so many Chinese were so interested about who would win, and it was very big news. So it was very exciting. It kind of to know that the election was big news in China. The Chinese actually care more than I thought.
Were they happy about the results?
It depends. China, is a big country, and so there are different groups of people. Actually, to my surprise and the surprise of quite a number of my friends, more people in China root for Trump than we all thought. We thought because the American media was so gung-ho on Hillary necessarily would win, but more of them actually supported Trump
China
for all kinds of reasons.
In China is and was the media transparent? That is, I understand in a lot of other countries, perhaps Russia or communist countries, where the media is controlled by the government.
Oh, sure.
The populace doesn't
yeah.
see very much. How
yeah.
filtered is it in China?
Quite filtered, I would say. I'm in Philadelphia, so I can be straight and blunt and candid and frank, and I'm a U.S. citizen. But the media is very much controlled. But on the other hand, still, the election in America was big news, and if you want to know why different groups of people support Trump, I'd be happy to tell you what I heard.
Yeah, I would love to hear it.
Well, there are at least two groups, because there are more, but just two. One group, and I cannot say how big the group is in terms of percentage and how many people, because I never saw the survey, but in talking to people on the road, enough people thought that if Trump wins, well, here's one, if he messes up America, then America will go down, and as America goes down, China will go up.
Yeah.
They did it to root against us.
Voting for I'm not saying that I'm representing all Chinese. I'm telling you there are many groups. China has 1.3 billion people.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can't say everybody thinks alike.
Right,
so there's just one group, Patty.
But still,
you have the
it makes
alt-right
sense
in
why
America,
they
but that
support
doesn't
it,
mean.
why
But that
they're
doesn't mean
excited.
that everybody is, a white supremacist. You see?
Yeah.
So,
That's one
but
group.
then there's one group, and then there's another group who believe that Trump is good because he cares about the poor people, the unemployed, the people who are suffering. Of course, they are not thinking of Trump's message that, companies are shipping jobs to China, whether or not it is the truth. Let's not touch it for now.
Right.
So they kind of think, so he cares about the people. He's anti-establishment. So there is that kind of a feeling. And of course, there are other groups, including people. I mean, China is a very patriarchal society, man-centered, male-centered. And it's to most of these people, a white man supported by a lot of white men, what's so special about it? What's so special about it?
Yeah.
I mean, you're supposed to support people who look like him.
Right. Makes sense.
Some basic fundamental ethnic, tribal, cultural attributes.
Well, I mean, it's not that much different than in this country. You have different groups for different reasons, thinking different things. And also people hear what they want to hear.
Yes.
So if there are 10 messages, they may focus on the 3 that resonate with them, and the other 7, who knows?
Right.
But so whether it's this country or another country, similar type of interpretation, perception.
Plus, people really don't have, in China, they don't really have direct news, and they know that. They kind of know that. So in a way,
that was my point.
You're talking about a lot of maybe astute observation plus a lot of pure perception plus guesswork.
Right.
So I'm just telling you what I heard on the road.
Yeah.
No, that's what I wanted to know.
It's very variegated. It's very diverse.
Yeah.
Is the internet pretty open there? I mean, to the people, if you Googled something on the internet in China, you can get what?
It's not open. No, you can't do Google. You unless you know how to get around it. And then you can't have Facebook.
No
you can't
Facebook.
even. No.
No LinkedIn
wow.
probably either. No LinkedIn.
No LinkedIn.
I think to some extent.
Microsoft
it's
owns
business.
it. Yeah.
It's business oriented. No Twitter. And a lot of websites are censored, and not just the pornographic websites, but religious websites and websites that don't speak well of China or whatever.
Wow.
So, the censorship, it's real. And a lot of people kind of take it for granted.
Yeah.
So now people realize that you're an American because
Yeah.
you've been out of China for so long.
Right.
Do you feel like it's different when you go there for you?
Yeah, sometimes, particularly when they are in some kind of a lousy or pissed off mood, they will say, "You American," like looking at me.
It's your fault,
Yeah, I
right.
know. Yeah, yeah. One of the worst things that one of the worst, not the worst things that a Chinese person can say to me, knowing I'm originally Chinese, I was born in China, I grew up in Hong Kong. It said, "Oh, you're American. You're so naive." Yeah, naive is the word.
Yeah.
That signals to me that he or she is really not very happy with me right this second.
Yeah. Well, we know there are lots of issues over trade with
Right.
China, et cetera, et cetera. But bottom line, I think, was the question becomes up: do you think a trade war between the U.S. and China is likely to happen in the near future?
I don't believe it will. I think that the people I have met in China really are not that concerned. People are aware of what Mr. Trump said during the election process. They don't believe that this can happen because so many companies in America, big, medium-sized, and small, have been making stuff in China.
Apple, for
And
example.
it's very difficult for them to suddenly have everything come back, and if they must change their tax, they will have to make them in Southeast Asia. So, but on the other hand, anything can happen.
But they're saying it's a 45%.
That's what
tariff?
Mr. Trump said. 45.
That's shocking. That's a tax on the product when it comes back.
Nobody knows. Mr. Trump, of course, in his art of the deal, I'm sure, just like the art of war, you don't want your opponent to
Know
know what
everything.
you are thinking
Right, yeah.
and what you would like to do. The Chinese are used to that. They kind of
Sword,
they look
sword,
at
sword,
Trump.
sword rattling. Sword rattling.
A saber rattling,
Yes,
sword
yes.
rattling, saber rattling, and the Chinese are historically commercial-oriented people. They're money-loving people. They perceive Trump as a businessman,
That
a
sounds like
successful
that's
businessman. Oh,
capitalism. That's
China!
capitalism.
If China added to capitalism, before we were born.
So the little thing I heard on the news, and I obviously don't know the surface of it,
Right.
is the idea of China and Taiwan and their trade deals being separate. I heard something about the government wanting them to view themselves as one.
Well, you have to understand the recent history. In 1949, before 1949, you had two political groups in China fighting against each other: the Communist Party and the Kuomintang Nationalist Party. They were like fire and water. And
Political.
the nationalists,
Wasn't religious, just political.
pure political, pure power, with no religion. And the Kuomintang, or the Nationalist Party, was defeated. The communists pushed them, and so they fled to Taiwan. So they fled to Taiwan in 1949, and they, after being defeated, still thought that they were the legitimate ruler of China. So instead of giving themselves a separate name, they still proclaim that they are China. And that's why Taiwan has always been called Republic of China, ROC, whereas the Communist Party, who won and took over all of mainland China, called themselves the People's Republic of China. People's, communism, socialism, people. So, and that's why, because if not because of America, this is a guesswork, kind of rallying on the part of Taiwan, mainland China probably would have taken Taiwan back a long time ago.
Yeah.
So that's why there is this separate, trade treatises or projects, whatever it is. So the two countries are still they can't get along.
But why does it matter to the U.S.? Taiwan is a blip. China is the more than the elephant. That is mainland China. Taiwan's a blip. So why should U.S. even care?
Well, that's U.S. power, U.S. glory. I mean, it's like Taiwan is some kind of protected. If Taiwan runs into problems, it's free China.
Yeah.
America is we are the land of the free. So the Taiwanese are therefore rooting for American idealism to help them because they are free people. It's almost like your question would almost be like if Taiwan were Christian and America were total medieval Europe Christian, you know, and there were an anti-Christian group trying to attack them, would you be the biggest, most important power of the world as a Christian country, help a smaller one? Of course you would. It's ideology, to answer your question.
Well, just to maybe talk one last question about the Taiwan thing, the phone call between Taiwan and the Taiwan president, I guess, and Trump. I mean, was it a big deal? Is it a big deal? I mean, I understand.
It is a big deal to the Chinese. It is a big deal to the Chinese because the Taiwan issue is really not a monetary issue. The Taiwan issue is about identity. So if you try to make Taiwan feel that it can be independent, this is the fear of mainland China, that it could be independent, then it would almost be like Manhattan could be sold to China, or you sell California to France, or you cannot do that. You cannot break up your identity. And so that's why I'm sure that there must be reasons why Mr. Trump decided to do something unscripted.
Well, supposedly he received a phone call and answered the phone call.
Well,
congratulatory phone call. That's what I read.
I didn't read into the details. I'm sure that there must be stories. But I really don't know. But it is not something that one wants to do. It's almost like playing golf in the Basilica of Saints Peter and Paul. You don't go in and play golf. People will tell you not to do that.
But again, it could be more saber rattling, as we say.
On both sides, I would say. It's negotiation.
Right. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, Patty.
What are two things Trump should not do or do with China?
I think that it would help for him to deploy people who know China, to kind of be the interface.
Like yourself?
It wouldn't be me because I'm in the business commercial side of it.
Right.
I never am very good with the political machinery. So that it's and also China traditionally and culturally would gladly to have a middleman, a diplomat as a go-between, because a lot of friction can be reduced. Having somebody doing playing the role of a transformer, like a modem. And then the other thing is Russia. I think that China would be very unhappy if America somehow gets too close to Russia. That's at least mostly on the political side.
I think America would be upset.
Yeah.
So China and Russia aren't that friendly?
Not right now, no. But it's geopolitics. You don't know who is going to change shape. People do some shape shifting nowadays.
And if for some reason, when they have the electoral vote, and let's say Hillary gets shooed in, which seems unlikely from the history, would China be happy?
You mean, I didn't get your question
if
completely.
Hillary became the president-elect, or the president, after the Electoral College has their vote?
I don't think China would be happier or not happier. In a way, to me, deep in my psyche, I'm asking myself that question. And if I have to answer myself, it doesn't matter. China will have to deal with whoever in the White House. It does not matter. China does not necessarily, all of it, think that Hillary is a friend either.
Right.
So.
Okay. All right. Well,
fascinating. We'll be following the news the next few years.
It will be very interesting.
Yes, thank you for your insights, James.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you.
So that's the end of our show today. Next week, we're going to be joined by Kevin Jameson, who's the chairman of the Dementia Society of America, something that touches, I'm sure, almost all of our lives. So we hope you'll be back. Thank you.